Welcome back to La Pausa, a Pints and Punditry podcast here at the Pitchside Pub. This is episode 17. We're coming to you on Friday this week instead of Thursday because I knew I'd have some sort of reaction to the U.S. men's national team Nations League semifinal match against Jamaica. And, I was really hoping it would be more positive, but it's not. That was about as disappointing of a 3-1 win as you could possibly ask for, and there's a lot of reasons why, and some are about Greg Berhalter and some are not. And that's what I want to dive into today. So we're going to talk about that match, get some reaction, break it down, and talk about Greg Berhalter because there's a few things I don't understand, particularly if you are a massive Greg Berhalter supporter. So I want to find out from you, why do you love Greg Berhalter? If you do, if you are a Berhalter out guy, get in that comment section. Either way, let me know your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube, or on Spotify if you're listening to the podcast on there. Either way, make sure you give us a follow, and of course, follow us on Twitter at Pitchside Pub, and you can interact there. So I want to go on record, before I even get into the game, I want to go on record and say I am not a massive Berhalter out guy. I am not in the part of the U.S. men's national team that is calling for his head left and right, and that he is the worst, most incompetent manager that we could possibly put out there, and that he's a complete disaster. I don't think it's that extreme. I'm also not a pro-Berhalter guy. And that's what I want to talk about today is, where are my pro-Berhalter people, and what is the argument you can make for why he should remain the U.S. men's national team coach, and why he is good, and why you are pro-Berhalter. That's what I want to know today, and we're going to get into that in more detail. That's a really important question that I have, because I really don't understand it. Again, I'm not super anti-Berhalter. I'm mostly indifferent about Greg Berhalter, because I think that's sort of the coach he is. He's sort of meh. He's just okay. Could we do worse? Yeah, absolutely. Could we do better? Almost certainly. And I don't mean from the big name pool that's out there and currently unemployed, the Jose Mourinho's that keeps getting linked to the U.S. team. I actually think that would be worse. I think somebody with Jose Mourinho's need for control and fire would not handle a national team well when you only get these guys for a certain amount of time. However, his fire might have come in handy yesterday because the U.S. played a beat-up and lacking Jamaican team that did not have all of their star players. And they do have a few really good, talented players, but they were not on the pitch yesterday. And they played this team in an incredibly lackluster performance in a American football stadium that was 90% empty. So you do sort of have some understanding as to why they came out with such a dull, sort of lackluster performance. It doesn't excuse it, but I understand it. We're going to get into that for a little bit. But I'm not a super anti-Berhalter guy. I'm not calling for his head. I just think that there are much better options out there. This can't be it. This can't be the best we have. It can't possibly be. And I will admit, I am not particularly well-versed on MLS coaches and the Americans that we have coaching in MLS right now. But I know there's got to be better options, and I could name a few that are. Jesse Marsch, he's not an MLS coach, but I do think he would be a better option. He's sitting on the set. He was in the stadium. You could have called him down at halftime, and I think it would have made the team better. But I'm also not going to go to the extreme of a lot of the anti-Berhalter guys and say that he's the worst coach ever. And I'm not going to nitpick a lot of the stuff he did last night. I thought the starting 11 was fine. I thought his substitutes were fine. You can't be so anti-Berhalter that everything he does is wrong. That can't be true. He's not that bad, guys. It's not that bad. So the sky is not falling. The reason there is urgency here is because we are running out of time to get this right for the next World Cup. And we are in a period of time where a decision has to be made on Greg Berhalter, and if he is the guy to lead us in 2026. And you would think, that decision's already been made. That was the decision when they rehired him. And to a certain extent, that's true, except that there's time. There is still time if something is done in the next, 6 months to a year. But we've only got so many games to evaluate him on, and this was one of them, and it was not good. And my issue with Berhalter is tactics. He has his system, and he is a proud, stubborn man who does not want to deviate from his style of play. And while I respect that, and that would be fine if he was my club coach, his style of play does not fit the skill sets of our best players, particularly when you can't use a full game of Gio Reyna, because he's the only real center of the field creator that we have. And understandably, you can't put him out there for 90 minutes right now because he hasn't played 90 minutes barely all season, and let alone the fact that this game went 120. But knowing that, you can't play the same style of ball. And frankly, Berhalter's system doesn't even really ask for center of the field creators. His entire system is to get wide and flood the box with crosses. I call it cross and pray because that's basically what we do. We get the ball up the pitch, we get it wide, and we just fling crosses into the center, into the box, and frankly just sort of hope for the best. And it's not a system, it's not a strategy. And it would be an okay strategy if we had either of the two things you need to pull that off, which is wide players who are good at delivering crosses and a big, tall, strong finisher who could finish those crosses. We don't really have either one. Our wide players, Pulisic, Tim Weah, even the defensive wide players like Jedi Robinson and Serginho Dest, that is not necessarily their strength. Jedi Robinson is a good passer. I think he's leading the Premier League in assists by fullbacks this year, but it's not all on crosses. He's not Trent Alexander-Arnold when it comes to delivering crosses, right? And that's obviously a high bar to clear. Not everybody has to be TAA, but we don't even have a guy like that. That's not what Serginho Dest does best. He's better in traffic. Tim Weah is great. I'm hitting my mic here. Tim Weah is great with straight line speed. Pulisic is good with straight line speed. He's even better when he cuts inside, right? Neither of them, neither Weah or Pulisic, is particularly adept at delivering crosses. In fact, there was talk during the World Cup of removing Pulisic from his corner-taking duties because he was not particularly succeeding at it. And there was questions as to whether or not he was the best option at that. And that's a nice set piece where you get to wind up and put it where you want it. So those are not their strengths. They are fabulous players, but those are not their strengths. Falarin Balogun is a talented striker who is not in good form at the moment, but you're not going to get the most out of him when you've got a packed box. And Jamaica just packed the box, particularly after they scored their goal in the first minute. They went like 5-4-1 or maybe even 6-4 at times. Had no interest in even having anybody up top, and they just put everybody in the box. And they were going to do that anyway. They were going to do that anyway, knowing they're playing the United States, and then knowing they were down some of their best players, and they were not going to outscore the U.S. in a track meet. So they just packed the box and loaded it up. The counter to that cannot be to just fling crosses in the box. That is the worst case scenario, and yet that's the strategy. That's always the strategy. That was the strategy in the World Cup. That was the strategy in last year's Gold Cup. It's always the strategy. And until they got to the last 10 or 15 minutes and just had to take as many chances as possible, that was not the way to attack this. If anything, in a game like this, the insistence on dominating possession actually hurts. The United States would have been better off having less possession and baiting Jamaica into some sort of scoring opportunity, or at least what they would think is a scoring opportunity, and then having some sort of counterattack where guys like Balogun and Weah and Pulisic can use their speed and their incredible ability in the open field to make guys miss and to maneuver. That's where those guys have strength. And then you get Dest and Robinson coming up the wings, and they can run, they can overlap and give us options and create some space. If the other team's not going to give you space, you've got to draw them out. And one way to draw them out is to give them the damn ball. There is such thing as too much possession. I watch it week in, week out with Manchester City. They play against teams who are just going to load the box, and yeah, they dominate 75% possession, but they really don't get that many good looks on the goal. And eventually their talent wins out, and the U.S. talent should win out too, because the U.S. is more talented than anybody they go onto the pitch with in CONCACAF. It's not until the World Cup, or maybe when they get to Copa America this year, because that's new. But generally speaking, in CONCACAF, they are not going to meet anybody on the pitch that has the talent that they have. But they're also not Manchester City. They don't have Kevin De Bruyne. They don't have Phil Foden. They don't have these creator guys who can do this sort of thing. So they're going to have to draw them out. So regardless of whether or not that would work, it would be different, and they got to try something. You cannot just let the other team pack the box, and then fling crosses in and hope for the best. They also don't have strikers who are really adept at meeting crosses and finishing them. Haji Wright is the best option. He didn't even start the game. He wasn't even on the team until a few days ago. And he's in great form right now, and putting him on was the right move. Credit to Berhalter. The subs he made were correct. Again, I'm not calling for his head. I'm not calling for I'm not accusing him of blatant ineptitude. I think he's a stubborn man who refuses to deviate from his system, and that simply does not work in national team coaching. And I have been saying that for a couple of years now. That was the reason I even created this channel and got away from doing FIFA videos and got into doing commentary, was I was inspired to talk about Greg Berhalter and the U.S. men's national team leading up to the World Cup, and the fact that they did not know who their top striker was at that time. This was before Balogun was a part of the team. And that is his fault, that they did not know, and that they had not tried things like a false nine, and they had not tried new systems. And it remains the same, and that's my issue with the rehire for him, is it's just more of the same. And more of the same means being just very, very, very okay. And I guess my question to the pro-Berhalter crowd is that the bar? Is that the bar we're trying to clear? You cannot tell me, you cannot look at me with a straight face and tell me that you think Greg Berhalter is getting the most out of this talented team, right? Now here's what I would like to know, and please get in the comment section or send me a message on Twitter, wherever. What is your pro-Berhalter argument? If you are a pro-Berhalter guy and you think all of the Berhalter out crowd is ridiculous and they're just ganging up and they just want, the grass is always greener on the other side, and regardless of who it would be, whether it's Jesse Marsh or Jose Mourinho or anybody else that's available, and there are guys, if you are a pro-Berhalter guy, why? What is your argument? And here's the stipulation. Here's what you can't say. Oh, well, he's won, 3 times as many games as he's lost, or as he's drawn. He's won 2/3 or 3/4 of his games as the U.S. men's coach. And I don't know what the exact number is off the top of my head, but it is something like that. They have been largely successful. If you just, wanted to put everybody in a table, they'd be at the top of the standings. But is that the bar? Is that the bar we're trying to clear here? They should be. They should be. They are far and away the most talented team in CONCACAF, which is where 90% of their games come from. And yes, they got out of the group stage in the World Cup, but not with any great emphasis. And then they got absolutely annihilated by the Netherlands, and it was clear that when they finally played against a team that was as talented as them, and probably a little more talented, that they could not adjust and add up. And Berhalter was tactically pantsed. He was abused in that game by the Netherlands, and he was just beat up. He just did not make any adjustments, and they could not hang. And so is just beating up on these CONCACAF teams and needing to go into stoppage time to beat a 3-1, to beat a Jamaican team that's missing its star players 3-1, is that good enough? Is that all? Is that all? So what is the pro-Berhalter argument? Because you can't give me results, because the results should be there anyway. If whoever replaces Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool finishes 5th next year, and the argument is, yeah, but, we made the Europa League, and we didn't get relegated, is that the bar for Liverpool? Is that really success? Same thing here. Is just limping out of the group stage and then getting smoked in the round of 16 a success? Is just winning the Nations League or winning the Gold Cup? If we do that, but it's not with any sort of emphasis or any sort of dominance that it should be. But yeah, we got the win. Is that the bar? So what is the pro-Berhalter argument? That's, as we're, 10, 15 minutes into this now, I'm getting to the key point, as I tend to do, which is, what is the pro-Berhalter argument? I genuinely don't understand it. And again, I'm not a super anti-Berhalter guy, but I don't understand the pro-Berhalter crowd. I don't get what their argument is to defend him. And it can't be results. Because the results could be that almost any coach you put in there that has any level of competence would be able to get the results that he has achieved. So that can't be it. I find it hard to believe it's tactics. I don't think he is tactically strong. I think he has one system that he plays, and if he was an MLS coach, when he was an MLS coach, and he's at a club, and you got him the players that fit that system, I'm sure he would be successful, and that would be perfectly fine. But again, is that the bar? Right? When the U.S. was just trying to, be a part of the party on the world stage, then that was probably fine. We just need somebody with a certain level of competence who can, grow these young players. But we're trying to win a World Cup now. We want to be a top 10 team in the world. We want to have a legitimate shot to win the World Cup. So just having a basic level of competence is no longer good enough. The 2026 World Cup is when this core group of American players will be in their prime. Who out there, what manager is going to get the most out of Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna and Tyler Adams? That's the core right there. Those are the guys. And then you got your McKinneys and you got your Balligans and you got your Weahs. And listen, we got a good squad and a lot of depth. But who's going to get the most out of them? Not who's going to wedge them into their system. So what is the Pro-Berhalter argument? If it's tactics, I don't think you're watching the same game as me. Because I think his tactics are probably his weakest part. Now, man management is an argument I get a lot, right? I hear that a lot. The players like him. Well, that may be true. But that doesn't mean he's a good man manager if the result is to motivate your players. And look at yesterday's game. Now, it's understandable. They played in front of a dreadfully empty stadium in what had to have been a sterile environment in a stadium that is not really built for the sport, which is a problem because it's going to host a World Cup final in a couple years. But no, it's not. They were vying for it, and they will host World Cup games, but it's going to be in New Jersey. I went back, hit the reset button there. But anyway, it's going to host major soccer games, and it's not really meant for it, and that's a problem. AT&T Stadium, they're putting these in football stadiums, indoor stadiums. It's just not really a great environment for the sport, and then you've got nobody there. So it's understandable that they come out a little flat. Of course, Jamaica didn't come out flat, but they're playing the big bad United States, and they got up for the game. So I get it. There's two sides of this you can be on. There's two arguments you can make. One, well, it's up to the players to motivate themselves. And I tend to agree with that to a certain extent. You put on the colors, you put on the national team jersey, you shouldn't need help getting motivated. But if that's the case, then man management isn't all that important. If the players are expected to motivate themselves, they don't need a big motivator, which is good because Berhalter is not one. But there are times in coaching when the players just don't have it, or they can't get it up themselves. And the coach has to step in and do something, and Berhalter is not that guy. He seems like a perfectly nice fella. Stubborn, proud, stuck in his ways, but perfectly jovial and nice, and the players do seem to like him. And I get the argument all the time that the players say nice things publicly about him. Well, yeah, no shit. Of course they do. They're not going to openly badmouth their manager. They'll never play again. And he has shown a little bit of spite there to do that sort of thing. So of course they're going to say good things publicly. So you can throw that out. That's not an argument. But they do seem to like playing for him. And they seem to like coming to the national team, and they have a good international break, and everybody has fun. They've got great camaraderie in the dressing room. They're genuinely all friends because they came up together in the system. They're all about the same age. So that's great. But again, is that the bar? That the guys have fun? It's not really what we're after here. And frankly, I think the players, have that camaraderie and that chemistry in and of themselves. They don't need Berhalter for that. So his job there is really to just get the hell out of the way. And so what is it he's bringing to the table? I'm sure he is a nice guy that they all like playing for, but I'm not sure that's the goal here. That's not really enough. I guess it's better than being a massive prick and alienating everybody and having players not want to show up for the national team like Ben White in England. But, so that's great that didn't happen. But again, is that it? Is that all we're bringing to the table? So we've got that he's a nice guy and he's won most of the games he's supposed to win anyway. But he gets tactically beat repeatedly. I don't get it. I'm missing something. So Pro-Berhalter guys and girls, fans, get in the comment section. Hit me up on Twitter at PitchsidePub. I would love to hear a really good pro-Berhalter argument as to why he should continue to get chances. I'm not super anti-Berhalter, but I don't understand the pro argument. So get in that comment section. Hit me up on Twitter. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's it for today. Thanks for joining La Pausa here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.